So today I'm sewing again, and I had a really long break. I had some problems with my dog and so on, but you're probably not interested in that, so I will just jump into the theme of today's video. So what I want to make is 3 things. Okay, so let me just pause here for a second to correct my past self and say I will do 2 projects here. I actually did make all 3, but when editing I realized it's just too much for me and I decided to make a separate video about the last project. So that will just come next. In a second I will show you the pile of fabrics I prepared, and 2 in the middle you will see in the next video. Okay, so let's resume. That are kind of color blocking or patchwork. I have my fabrics prepared. A lot of color. It kind of scares me how colorful it is, but we'll see how it goes. And I will use regular patterns, and I just want to show you how I will go about using the regular patterns to make color blocking or patchwork clothes. Yeah, so we have a lot to sew today, so without further ado, let's get started. The first project, I will use these 2 fabrics. These are knit fabric, and I will just want to make pants, like track pants or whatever you call it. So I have these knit fabrics and matching. I will have to check what these are called, but yeah, I managed to find a store that sells this knit fabric with this kind of fabric, right, like a ribbed fabric, in the exact same colors. So what I want to make is half and half track pants. Yeah, let's just see how it goes. So for this project I decided to use this pattern from Burda Easy. I will make it more high-waisted and I will add cuffs though. I already used this pattern and I really liked it, so that's probably my best bet here. The first thing I did was to make sure I know exactly what side of the pattern is what side of the pants. I just tried it on, and in the case of that pattern, right side of both front and back is for the same leg sleeve. I decided to place it on the right side of my material, 1 layer only, as I only need 1 piece of each pattern piece except pockets. I added 5 cm at the top to make it high-waisted. Burda patterns don't include seam allowance, so I added it while cutting. Instructions also said to cut out a rectangle for the belt, and the measurements they provide are for the whole belt, so I divided it in half and added seam allowance like so. Then I did the same for the second material. I just made sure to flip every pattern piece to its wrong side and cut everything on the right side of the material again, so I have all the pieces mirrored to the pink fabric. And these are all the pieces that I got, and I managed not to screw it up with size and all, and now it's just time for sewing according to the instructions. I decided to keep 2 colors separate so I don't accidentally mix anything together if I stop thinking for a second. This pattern has stripes at the sides, so the first step was to sew them to the back piece. FYI, I used white thread in my serger. I only have a set of white and black, so that was an obvious choice. But for top stitch that is visible, I will later use more matching colors. And then I placed the pockets on both front and the back and sewed them. Now to connect front and the back, I sewed side seams first and then around the pocket, and I couldn't reach the corner on my serger, so I decided to sew it with a zigzag stitch on my regular machine. I also basted pockets to the top of the pants to just keep them in place so they don't move later when I sew it together with the belt. In the meantime, I also sewed both inner seams, and then I flipped the pink one to the right side so I could put it in the lilac sleeve, right sides together, and sew the crotch seam. Then I took the rectangles I prepared for the belt and sewed them together to get one closed belt. I then folded it in half lengthwise and tried it on my pants to make sure I know which side is the front, and to this day I have no idea how this happened because it looks okay, but it's not, and I will have to do it again. Anyway, on the front I marked where I wanted the cords to stick out. I tried to make them as centered and symmetrical as possible. You can use eyelets, but I've never used it and I didn't have any, so I decided to just make buttonholes. That's what I did, and my machine sometimes has some problems, so they turned out not to be the best, but they would do. Like I said, for visible seams I wanted to use matching thread, and I did not have any really close in color, but I found some beige and grey and it turned out they were kinda close enough. Then I wanted to finally sew the belt on and I realized my mistake and I decided not to cut new pieces and just live with having extra holes inside. So I did new holes on the other side and moved on. Then I pinned the belt on the pants, making sure to match the half point where the colors meet as good as I possibly can to really get that half and half look. And I sewed it, leaving a small gap at the back to place some elastic inside later. Also, I realized that somehow all my pieces had different length, so I cut it to be the same length. Then I cut rectangles for the cuffs. I just measured my ankle circumference and used that measurement. I sewed them close and then marked quarters with snips to have 4 points to pin it to the leg sleeves, where I marked quarters as well. And then I pinned these 4 spots and sewed everything together, stretching the cuffs. Then I failed to film it, but I sewed 2 rows on the belt to make channels for 3 elastics, and I left gaps on every row where I earlier did the same on my serger. I used matching threads, so I sewed the lilac side first and then pink side separately. I used 3 pieces of 12mm elastic, about the length of my waist measurement, and a piece of cord. I put everything in its channels and closed the gaps, and that was it. I showed the pant off in a TikTok, and so I want to use this opportunity to invite you to follow me there. My handle there is evelina.x. Also, later I decided to make a matching top too, using similar method, and also what I will use for the crop top in a second. Okay, so the second project, this will be top. It's again from knit fabric, but all these like tips and all these rules you can apply to whatever project you're making. But yeah, this is another knit fabric project. So I have these 2 jersey fabrics. This one I already used and I have some left, and this one I got from a basket at my local favorite store. They have a basket with like remnants, and it's not a lot of that. It's like 40 centimeters maybe, and I didn't know what to do with it, but I really like the color, so now I figured that it will be a great remnant to be used in a like multi-fabric situation. And I want to make half and half again, but for the top you go a little bit different about it because you don't have separate pieces like with pants. So I will just show you how I will make it, and the pattern that I will use is by Cool Stitches. It's a twist crop top, it's called probably. So yeah, I will use this. And the front of of it did not fit me very well, so I modified it a little bit, and I will use my front piece. But it doesn't really make a difference, you can use the original pattern obviously. So yeah, let's just start making it. The top I'm sewing is lined, so it needs 2 of every pattern piece. Normally you would cut it on the fold, but because we're doing the half and half version, I will just use the front pattern piece to cut it as it is, not on the fold. The one thing to remember is that you need to add seam allowance where normally the fold would be, so you have to add that. I did not because I forgot, so now my top is a tiny bit too small. And these are all the pieces, 2 of each fabric for the front, 1 of each for the back, and 1 of each for the stripes. The instruction says to sew the stripes first, so that's what I did, and I turned them inside out. Then I sewed front pieces together to make 2 half and half pieces, so those half and half pieces I will just treat as a normal front pieces. Then I decided which side I like more, as I have a pattern on one fabric, and I made a sandwich of 2 front pieces and stripes between them, and I sewed it and then flip it right side out. Then I made the back piece with this adorable twist, and I did not want to make an instruction video out of it, as the author of the pattern did one, so if you want to see it in detail, I will leave a link to it in the description box below. Like I said, here I just want to show you how I went about making this half and half look. And so now I had both front and back piece ready. Time for the side seams. As you can see, I stopped thinking at this point and I pinned it the wrong way. Of course, it's also a cute idea to sew it like that, but I really wanted that half and half look. Fortunately, I noticed it before sewing and I flipped it the other way around and then sewed it. I used a wool needle to hide these hanging serger threads. Then the last thing was to sew stripes on the back of the top, so I used the pattern as a guide to figure out the placement, and I pinned them and sewed them and it was all done. Here is me wearing it with my half and half pants, and like I said, in the next video I will show you more complex, more patchwork top that I also made. So if you want to see it, then maybe consider subscribing. There will be also more sewing and sometimes cross stitch related videos coming. If you liked it, then make sure to click the thumbs up. And I think that's it for today, so see you in the next one. Bye!